Well, today the regulator has given the green light to Rosebank. It's the largest untapped oil field with a little bit of gas in the UK. Near Shetland. For context, it's twice the size of the controversial Cambo oil field, which was stopped by protesters. Now, in the summer, Greta Thunberg travelled to London specifically to protest the government's support for Rosebank. She told me that history would judge them for that support, though the government today welcomed the decision. They said that it would bring jobs to the area. They said that it would bring energy security. Now, it wasn't an entirely unexpected decision for campaigners, but nevertheless, it was a huge blow for them.
Beneath these waters lies 500 million barrels of oil. To the companies developing it, that spells billions in revenue. To environmental groups, enough carbon belched into the atmosphere as 56 coal-fired power stations running for a year. Today, Rosebank got the regulatory approval these protesters had been dreading.
We know it won't lower bills. We know it will push us catastrophically past safe climate limits. It's a real catastrophe for the future of our planet.
The government welcomed the news, saying it would improve energy security and create jobs.
We need oil and gas in the future, and I think it's important that it's produced here because that means jobs and investment right here in the UK.
But even if it's produced here, its developer Equinor has already told MPs it's destined for global markets.
To say that developing Rosebank is going to help the UK's energy independence is not strictly factually correct, because the oil and gas that comes out of Rosebank, which is mostly oil, will be owned by the companies that get it out of the ground, not by the British public or the government or anyone else, and they can simply sell it to the highest bidder.
Energy UK, which represents the companies supplying oil to consumers, said the only long-term solution for bills and energy security was in reducing our gas demand rather than extracting new fossil fuels. We put this to Equinor, the majority owner of Rosebank.
I'm asking how this will affect bills and whether it's correct to say that this will have zero impact on gas bills.
So Rosebank produces, gas, which is, equivalent to the volume of daily use in Aberdeen and Shire for about 10 years of time.
Okay,
to put it into
but 37
context.
days, if it was across the UK, it would have the equivalent of 37 days worth of gas use at current demand.
Oh, yeah, but still a good contribution in a way.
In 2021, the International Energy Agency said no new fossil fuel projects could be allowed if the world were to meet its net zero target by 2050. The UN says existing oil and gas infrastructure is already on course to bust carbon budgets. Labour, who oppose Rosebank, say they wouldn't revoke the licence now it's been granted.
So Labour reneging on that licence, or Labour saying that were they to win the election they'd take it away, would that affect the way that you're spending money right now?
So what we are concentrating on, that we have been given a licence today, and based on that we do a final investment decision on the Rosebank field. If that was to change, that also changes the circumstances.
The project will have received nearly £4 billion in tax breaks by the time it starts extracting, a move designed to attract inward investment. In July, after the government granted hundreds of North Sea drilling licences, Greta Thunberg travelled to London to protest Rosebank and spoke to this programme.
If you think that you can just get away with a few more years, a few more months of continued business as usual to maximise short-term profits, then you are very wrong and history will judge you very poorly.
No new oil, no new drilling, hey!
Campaigners will now focus their firepower on legal challenges, arguing Rosebank's development will infringe on the government's legally binding climate commitments.
Well, joining me now from Aberdeen is David Whitehouse, the Chief Executive of Offshore Energies UK, which represents North Sea oil and gas producers. Can we just nail some of the rather misleading spin around this decision? It's not going to bring down British domestic gas bills, is it? And it's not going to make us any more secure when it comes to relying on energy from hostile states, is it? Because it all gets sold internationally on the international market.
I think I would respond by just saying I think it is important we look at this. It's important we do meet our net zero goals, and actually I think today's announcement actually is consistent with that. Rosebank itself being announced, I think it will contribute in a small way to our energy security.
How?
Absolutely, it will protect our jobs.
How will it contribute to energy security?
For a couple of reasons. One, so energy security, the Rosebank field itself will produce gas. That gas goes directly into the UK market.
No, it doesn't.
The UK
it goes
is
into
a
the
net,
international
the UK is a
market.
net. No. The gas will go directly, piped directly into the national grid. So the gas goes directly. Just so you have that fact correct, goes directly into the national grid. The oil itself, yes, the UK does not have sufficient refining capability for all of the oil to be refined. So yes, some of it will go internationally, but the UK is a net importer of oil products. So fundamentally, it's exported, but it is returned to the UK as refined products. So it does help. And then if you look in the more broader context of energy security, what it does is, yes, it contributes there, but actually it also contributes to supporting jobs, 200,000 decent jobs up and down the country.
Although those jobs could equally be in renewables, couldn't they? I mean, they can be switched, because it's interesting that you say that it contributes to our transition to net zero, because the IEA, the International Energy Agency, says we do not need any new oil and gas in order to meet our net zero requirements.
So if I could come back on that, they say yes, we need no more oil and gas to meet our energy crisis, and they're looking at it in a holistic way. But what I think events in Ukraine have shown us, we do need to look after our energy security domestically. So that's why I think this is important. And I think what the IEA also say, for a successful energy transition, you need to do it with people, not to people. And part of that is you need to protect decent jobs up and down the country. You need to protect the very supply chain companies who not only are going to support oil and gas, but the very companies who are going to deliver net zero. So actually, this is absolutely consistent with that. We need to have an energy transition which is for people. It's for people. We need to do it in a pragmatic way. This is about oil and gas and renewables, not oil and gas.
I mean, obviously, this is going to make the Norwegians very rich, but I mean, or even richer. But are you sure it's commercially viable, given the expected reduction in demand for fossil fuels as more and more renewable energy comes on stream? I mean, if you look at the value of Ithaca Energy, even though it's had a big boost, obviously, because of this decision, it's down overall over the long term. It doesn't suggest there's huge confidence.
Actually, I think you touched on a good point there. So one thing in terms of demand, I mean, let's be clear. In the UK, 75% of our energy comes from oil and gas, and we're lucky that we produce domestically about half of that. So actually, no matter how quickly we drive down demand, we need the domestic oil and gas production. So I think from that perspective, it's good. And I think touching on what we're seeing just in terms of that overall investment requirement, while today I absolutely welcome this as a step forward, we really do need to unlock investment, not just in oil and gas, but in carbon storage, in hydrogen, in offshore wind. We're seeing too much of that work is on hold. We need to get that unlocked, and we need to create that environment where people want to invest in energy in the UK. We get that right. That creates thousands of decent jobs for decent people up and down the country, creates real economic value, and helps us fight climate change. Again, I'm an old engineer. The way you solve climate change is not through discourse. It is not through separating people. It's about getting people working together.
You're not saying the way to fight climate change is by drilling for oil and gas.
We can deliver it. Sorry.
I mean, you're not really saying that the way to fight climate change is drilling for new oil and gas.
What I am saying is it's counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true. We're in an energy transition. 75% of our energy today comes from oil and gas. You cannot turn it off in minutes. It's going to be a period of time. And the way you solve climate change is by working together. Oil and gas and renewables working together, driving to deliver the climate change. That's exactly how you deliver big engineering projects, which is exactly what the transition to net zero is.